Hello, everyone.
What I
Welcome to AI Agents Hour. As always, I'm Shane here with my co-host Abby,
what's up?
and today we're going to be doing what we do every week, except it's Tuesday today, not Monday, so that's kind of different, But besides that, it's pretty much the same old, same old.
How was your Labor Day?
Labor Day was good. Got to spend some time with the fam and a few friends, so yeah, it was a kind of recharge the batteries a bit and ready for kind of a bit of a push, you can say.
Yeah, I think I hope everyone's feeling refreshed because we have a lot of shit to do. So
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, we're from Mastra. So we're two of the co-founders of Mastra. Everyone should have their AI agents book handy. Abby, do you have yours today?
I'm actually calling in from the airport. So I'm on my
Oh,
way back to San Francisco.
when's your
So
flight?
in like 2 hours, so I had to come early.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
This is the first live stream from an airport that we've
I
had yet.
know.
So
Yeah, I'm in the lounge, chilling. People are drinking mimosas and having fun.
nice.
I'm here.
Yeah. Well, glad you could make it. And yeah, we got a pretty great show today. We're going to be talking about whatever going bananas means at the bottom. We're going to talk about Nano Banana. We're going to talk to Manuj from Waffle. We're going to talk to Akeil, who's building an MCP Course Platform. So,
Just sick.
pretty cool. We'll hopefully see a demo of that. And yeah, we're going to be doing all the AI news just like we always do.
Yep.
Yeah, for those of you that have not already, please make sure you're liked, subscribed on YouTube to this show, to the Mastra AI channel. Also, if you're on X, give us a like, reshare it. We do appreciate that. If you're listening to this after the fact on Apple Podcasts or potentially on Spotify, please, if you want to give us a 5-star review, that would be awesome. If you want to give us less than a 5-star, just find something better to do.
Yeah,
Just don't leave a
five
review,
stars
please.
only.
Yes, 5 stars only. But appreciate you all for tuning in, and yeah, let's kind of get right into it. I guess. Well, what did you do over Labor Day? Anything fun?
Just slept and try to. I was feeling under the weather, so now I'm feeling good and ready to get hit it hard. So I needed it though. I think everyone needed a little recharge after all the hustling we've been doing lately.
Yeah, which reminds me, if you're going to be in Paris for AI engineer, come see us.
Yep. Well, when are you getting to Europe, too?
So I leave in the 13th or 14th, something like that. Yeah. So
Yeah,
in 12 days from now, basically.
yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah.
I leave on the 14th. And we're headed to Belgium first to say what up to Ward, who's right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With us in
Uh,
spirit.
yeah, and then Paris the next week. So if you're around there and want to come meet with us, we'll be posting some stuff on Twitter. And if you want to come join us wherever we're at, you're more than welcome to. Whoever's out there.
Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna try to do at least some kind of impromptu 1 or 2 meetups with people from that are building in AI, especially using TypeScript, and even if you're not using Master and you just want to come talk to us about it, please do.
Yeah.
But with that, let's talk a little bit about Nano Banana, because that's been something that was released last week, and I think a lot of people have. Yeah, I've heard some people say it's a little overhyped, but also some people say it's pretty awesome. So I don't know. What have you heard?
I'll tell you that it's the bee's knees, essentially. Well, I think every model company is saying that this is the most advanced state of the art model every time they release something. But I think I played around with it. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. It's a little bit faster than OpenAI in this generation too, which I like. That
Yeah.
should take a long time.
So I actually have images of you, Sam, and myself, and they have this like template generator which pictures yourself through all the different uh I guess different decades. It just uses your picture to like show character consistency. So we're gonna run through that in a few minutes here after we talk about it. So for those of you that want to, please be watching the video version of this so you can see what Abby and I would look like in the 60s or the 50s or whatever. So not we'll tease that a bit, but let's talk through what they're actually saying about it, and then we'll try it out. So Gemini 2.5 Flash, our state-of-the-art image generation and editing model. As you might have already seen, it excels at character consistency, creative edits, and has Gemini's world knowledge. So, they're talking about, how it compares to ChatGPT, to Flux, which is kind of the most well-known, most used open source, I guess, image editing model that at least I've seen. And yeah, it compares itself to Gemini 2.0 Flash image as well. And so when you look at it, it shows some examples. You can use it in the Gemini app or in Google AI Studio. And you can see, like, you can take an image, you can generate it across, different things, which isn't that new, right? Like, this has kind of existed before. The examples that I've seen that are really cool is when you can take pictures of a bunch of different things and tell it to put it into one image. That
Yeah.
it's like, take this watch, put it on this person, and put this, outfit on that person, and it works pretty well. So
Yeah.
that's where I think it really excels.
I saw
And
some other great examples of, it's an image of like a model wearing clothes, and then you transform it into, can you lay all the clothes out on the bed, whatever that person's wearing. And it's kind of like, it's really interesting for people who work in e-commerce, because maybe you don't need to spend that much time and money on taking pictures. Maybe you can generate them for your clothing brand or whatever. But that was really cool.
yeah, you can see this is kind of a cool thing. Take one person and put them on different playing cards and different outfits and different environments. And I think one of the things, you can do is, if you look at this example, change my shirt color to red and remove the earring, works pretty well, right? It just takes the shirt, replaces it, keeps everything else the same. So it's a way to actually, replaces, it could replace Photoshop in a lot of cases, right? Where
Yeah.
you just want basic image editing and you can take a picture and you can tell it what to do. And again, you could kind of do this with Chat GPT, right? That it does exist, but I think this has been from my experience, seems to work pretty well.
Yeah. And then the native knowledge is great too, because you can just express like, I want to have a picture of Shane riding a horse or something. At least it knows what that would look like. Or you could even say like, oh, I want to be at Tiananmen Square, or use historic events. And then you could be placed there because it has that knowledge.
So this one is cool. Basically, kind of what we mentioned. You take the product and you put it into a scene. And
That's that.
I did like that they built these template apps.
Mhm.
So the one thing I don't know is, this is, so it is in preview today over the Gemini API and Google AI Studio. But I like that they built these template apps to show you how you could maybe use the functionality of it through the API. And obviously, they're going to want to build all this in the Gemini app, right? They want to make all this stuff available to you.
Yeah.
But I think there's probably use cases for people to build image editing tools or like that are more specific and niche on top of the API.
We should try our Excalibur example app and try to use Nano with it to see if it, I think, what did we use last time? Claude or something?
Yeah, I mean,
Regenerate?
yeah, we have an Excalibur, which basically takes an image and then it converts it to Excalibur JSON. So you could basically take a whiteboard image and convert it to Excalibur JSON. But it'd be cool if you could describe the diagram rather
Yeah.
than like draw it on the whiteboard and then convert that using the same kind of workflow that we've built. And we haven't actually tried it recently with the newer models. I think it would actually do a lot better, especially the newer
Yeah.
models that have a bit more context, because we had to break it into the workflow into so many steps because
Yes.
it flooded the context window. So let's, because I'm, curious, let's check out what this looks like here. And I'm going to just, basically this is an example app. Obviously it's meant to show, Nano Bananas or Gemini 2.5 Flash image preview. So I'm going to upload an image. Let me see. All right. I don't know who is who. I think let's go with you. I think this is you first. All right. There it
It's me.
is. Let's see what you look like across the decades.
Oh boy.
And while this is generating, if you are here, this is a live show. If you're here live, post messages in the chat. If you have questions, what you're thinking. Have you tried out this image model yet? What do you think of it?
I already don't like it.
Look, this is you in the 50s. Oh, yeah, 80s.
Holy
That
crap.
the 80s is my style, dude.
Dude, is that this? Dude, I thought I was a part of the Goofy movie, dude.
You got the 1970s,
Hey,
the
that looks like my dad's. Holy crap.
2000s, nice little, 1990s, a little
Ooh, the
punk rock,
little
and then
fro.
it just put the 60s looks exactly what I uploaded.
Yeah. I guess I
Dude,
guess that's my style.
you're stuck in the 60s, dude. That's what I'm saying.
Dude, the 80s one though. What if dude, if we get a bunch of 5 stars, I'll grow my hair like that.
Yeah, dude.
I will dress up just like that
Yeah,
for enough stars.
I think that this should be your like Halloween goal this year. Is like
Dude,
1980s.
man. All right, I want to see you know.
All right, all right, so how do we start over? Let's try one more here. All right, I think this one is me. So here we are. It's headshots day. Yeah, at a YC
Yeah.
event, and so that's why we have the same background. So let's run this, and then we do have Manuj who's joining us. So we'll kind of finish up talking about Nano Banana here in a second. But I am anxious to see what I look like across different decades. So here's my 1950s.
You look the same.
Yeah, basically. So apparently
Oh my
I'm a
god.
50s. Oh man.
Holy crap.
Okay.
Okay, that's our Halloween costumes this year. Nice mustache, dude.
Dude, if I could grow a mustache like that, I would keep it. I hadn't shaved in a while. Like if you look at last week's video, like I had kind of one going. It's pretty lackluster though. I don't think I would have to like fill it out. Like I have to be that's
Yeah.
either got to be fake or I don't know. This one
That's tight.
is so what's this one? This one is can't see 1960s. Just looks like a me wearing a suit,
Yeah.
which is
Oh,
not.
the
Oh,
70s. That doesn't even look
70s.
like you.
Yeah,
They morphed your whole face on that.
yeah, that one's a little off in my
That's
opinion.
suspect.
The 2000s,
Hey,
okay.
you look like you're in some 41.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's like my band pick. And then the 90s, that's actually, if that's kind of accurate. I probably look like that. No, maybe a little younger. Yeah. All right. Well, there you
yeah,
go.
that's
There you
like
have it. There's a bunch of other, if you go to, they have a couple other templates too for like prompt-based image editing, native world knowledge, multi-image fusion. So check it out on the Google for Developers site if you want to play around with Gemini 2.5 Flash image and see what everyone's going bananas about.
yeah. You know the cool thing about I always feel like all the image features brings a lot of new users into the industry because it's like tangible, it's fun, it gets like the hype going again. So I want more image models.
Yeah, I think it's just something tangible, right? That people can kind of lock onto. They can see the capabilities. People have images are so like universal. Everyone has a camera on them at all times now. Everyone's taking pictures quite frequently. If you're ever at an event, there's always someone who says, "Oh, we should take pictures of this." And so, I do think that people and the ability to do things with images in general it does draw a lot of people in. It's very visual.
Flash image needs its Ghibli moment. I guess it hasn't had it yet. Maybe because it just came out. But it's had
Yeah,
that Ghibli moment. It goes viral. People are generating the same type of image and stuff. That
yeah,
would be hype.
yeah. I'm trying to think if that I wonder if that's just a moment in time. I wonder if that'll ever happen
Yeah.
again. That was just kind
That
of
was
a
epic.
kind of a wild moment where everything you saw everywhere was just Ghibli. I think this one, it seems like it's a little bit more, you know, like a power tool in a way. Like I feel like you can have a little bit more control maybe than some of the other models, which is nice. But I haven't gone deep enough to know what the weaknesses are because on the surface, a lot of times this stuff seems really great, and then you dig in a little bit more, and maybe there's some, some things, some shortcomings, I guess you could say. But with that, we do have our first guest. So we're going to be bringing on Manuj from Waffle AI. We're going to talk about what is Waffle and, learn a little bit more about what you can do with it.
Awesome. Hey.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey,
Great.
Manuj. How's it going, dude?
It's going well, thanks. It's late at night over here in London. So good to be joining you guys, and yeah, excited to share more about what we're doing at Waffle.
Yeah, thanks for being here and joining us from the UK.
Yeah, Yeah. So I can talk you through a little bit about what we've been building, and then I think what would be cool is I want to show you what some of our users have built using Waffle, and then show you a bit of the product. Does that sound good?
Yeah. I mean, we love seeing demos around here, so definitely would love to kind of hear a little bit about the journey. You know, like how did you get here building Waffle? Then what is it? And I mean, maybe just like an introduction. Like who are you? Who are you,
Sure.
Manuj? Obviously, we know you, but
Yeah. So
the audience doesn't.
for context, we were in the same batch as Mastro. We did the W25 batch. And then we did our demo day with the Spring 25 batch, so one batch later. But I'm Manuj, and my co-founder Diogo and I are building Waffle. We are both from a computer science sort of background, and we initially set out with the first version of Waffle, building a kind of lovable style website builder. It was a more generic product to build web apps, and we over time shifted it more towards games. And so Waffle right now is an AI games builder, and um, we both have played a lot of games as kids. Diogo's built a game himself that got 1 million users in 70 different countries, and actually he built a bunch of games when he was a kid. And what has been exciting to see from our users is some of them are in a similar stage in life where they're kids building their first games, and some of them are older people as well building games that they've been kind of nostalgic about playing when they were kids. And it's people ranging from all different kinds of technical abilities, not just coders. Um,
So, so I think the thing that was exciting, you know, obviously I had seen the product before, and then when you kind of announced that it was kind of positioned more towards building games, that was really exciting for me because I have a history of building games and teaching kids how to build games. You know, I've used, like, I built my first video game on a TI 83 plus graphing calculator, you know, just literally typing out the code on the calculator. And it was just like a game loop, like a text-based adventure game that I built in middle school, you know. So that's like probably the first program. I didn't even know what programming really was. Like I'd kind of heard of it. That's probably my first introduction, was literally building games because I liked playing video games. And then I've used, you know, from Scratch to Construct or Construct to Unity to all the different platforms for building like 2D and some 3D games that haven't really done much with other than like having friends play. But yeah, that's why I was excited, because I'm like, if you can make that easier, that is awesome, because I think it would unlock, you know, in kind of the minds of a lot of kids of what's possible.
yeah, I think when people start building software, one of the first things they think of in terms of like, what should I code, is a game, because it's the when you look at the different categories of software, games are the ones where people get a lot of joy, and it's the first thing they remember when they think like, okay, what should I build? Um, yeah, so at the moment with Waffle, you can build 2D and 3D web games. And yeah, I can show you some of the ones that our users have built over
Yeah, please.
the last kind of 2 months that we've had this. So just gonna share my whole screen.
And while Manuj is pulling that up, if you are in the chat, let us know, have you built a game? What games did you build? What programs were you using? I'm really curious what the audience has been building with in the past, because I feel like it's pretty common for people to try to build a game in something, right? When they're getting started programming or coding.
And so you can see my screen, right? You
Yeah,
can
we
see
can.
games. I'm going to show you a couple of these. So I'll start with this. This is a little 2D platformer, but I found it really beautiful. The art inside it. It's called Into the Veil. This was made by one of our users. You can see it's been played 80 times. And so we've got our little like likes and comments and stuff. And I'm going to unmute it.
Sure.
Were you able to hear that?
Yeah, it kind of sounded a little like, I don't know, I could hear something. So maybe just unmute it.
Ninja the Saurus.
Yeah, let's.
Okay, let's just do it without the sound if you can't hear it so well.
Yeah, that's cool.
So this is a little elf character, and it goes around. It's got some birds. I wanted to show you the sound because it's got really beautiful audio effects in it as well, of the birds
Wow.
chirping. and the narrator talking about where this kind of character is going on its journey. And so this one's got some basic mechanics. The same user, Toxic, he's one of our first users. He also made this other one called Chariot Arena, which is more of a classic kind of shoot 'em up game. It's based on Roman gladiators. I'll show you. It's sort of a top down
Nice.
view. You're playing a chariot, and you have to ride around in this kind of
Oh,
thing, and
it's so cool.
the enemies. And you have these spikes on the floor. You have these power ups, and so
Wow.
on. So Toxic, for context, is a user who's not a coder. He's never written a line of code before. He's built this all entirely with AI. And then this is a similar from one of our other users, Jaden, who's built this game. This is more of a 3D like Minecraft kind of game.
Very
So
cool.
you can see.
Yeah, this feels like Minecraft-esque, Roblox-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a classic thing we see as well, is like users want to like emulate the games that they already play. Wait, let me refresh this one. Yeah. I'm trying to place a block, but I'm using my mouse pad and it's not so good. and so yeah, and then the way that you can kind of share these games is you build them in our editor here. So this is a game I've just been building right now. And then you can publish them and they go up on the website where other people can like, comment, and sometimes if you choose to make it so, they can also remix your game. So they can use your game as a starting point. I'll show you an example where you can remix. So
This feels very much like the Scratch, like but obviously like for the AI world, for the AI age, for the modern
Way
age.
cooler.
Way cooler, way better. But I just remember like seeing like remixed, and of course they were like not very good games, right? They were more like small animations than anything, but this is way cooler.
yeah, and Scratch is like what is cool, I think, with AI is even with things like Scratch and Game Maker, which have been such great ways for people to start making games in the past, you still kind of had to learn a whole framework or like a whole set of things to be able to make even the tiniest thing. And I think what's cool about AI is you can take someone who has an idea of something huge and awesome they want to build, and they can get a first version that actually like is starting to point them in that direction in a few minutes.
Yeah,
I have like a million questions.
yes.
Can
I know. I have so many like technical.
I have a lot of technical questions.
Like how does it work? All kinds of things. But keep going, and then when you're ready for our questions, we're gonna start throwing them at you.
I just want to show you just a quick like edit in the editor, and so we're doing game jams every week, starting this week, and so our game jam theme this week is 1v1. We want to see games where two players can play on the same device, and so this is an example of a game I started for that game jam. It's kind of like Rocket League. You got this player that moves around with arrow keys. I'm moving him around right now, and then I've got this other player that moves around with the WASD, and I've just added a football to the game. But I think what I'll do now is I'll probably let's make the cars bigger and the football bigger.
And for those Americans watching, also known as a soccer ball.
Soccer ball, yeah. Make the cars bigger and the football a bit bigger too. This will go off and do some edits. You can see it's not placed the goalposts quite correctly either, so I'm going to probably fix those goals as well. But when it goes off and starts coding, you'll be able to see the stream of code. So our 3D games are made in a framework called 3JS, and the 2D ones are made in something called Phaser.js. These are all JavaScript web games.
I've used both of them.
Oh, really?
Awesome.
Okay.
I was literally answered my question before I got to it. I was like, what are these built on top of? Because like, I imagine there's a framework underneath.
Yes, yes. So they're a combination. What one thing we noticed recently is like um, when you start trying to do UI elements like menus and scoreboards in Phaser.js, uh, it ends up being pretty bad for that. And so we have our template has both React and Phaser in it, and the AI kind of chooses to use React more for the UI components and Phaser for the game mechanics. For 2D, that is. So yeah, you can see the cars are a bit bigger now. And we got this car moving around as well. Yeah. So, and then if I wanted to go and like make an edit myself, if I wanted to, let's say, I don't know, I mean, this is only made up of 3 things at the moment. But let's say I wanted to turn the friction up to 20, and that's kind of annoying to do with the AI. I can just go in and change the friction and then save the file and see that the friction on the cars is increased.
Dude, this is so sick. Just want to let you know, this is dope, dude. Like, I love this. Everything about this is I love this. This is so dope.
Yeah.
Because I tried making games with Lovable, and and this kind of goes into my questions. Like, I didn't know anything about game design at all when I tried to make games with Lovable. And it obviously it chose 3JS for me. It started writing stuff, but then I had to learn. Like, I didn't even know anything about game development. First, I was like, "Oh, there's physics you have to worry about, the sprites or like the characters, the rules, like the mechanics, like." And if you don't know all those things, like, you can't really prompt it that well. What are y'all doing differently? Are you baking that stuff into the platform so like no one really has to care about that, or like, how does that work?
I think it's hard to like bake in everything that there is to know about game development. We do some prompting to try and make the models like more aware of certain like rules that are very common across all games and to avoid common errors. But when you want the tool to be very generic, there's not that deep you can go on the prompting, right? And so the other thing we do is we have a guide, and we're working on that guide all the time to try and teach people some basics of game development. Really, when you don't need to know how to implement every single thing, but you just need to understand the concepts, it's kind of easier to learn. So we have our guide here, and we've started talking about, kind of, for example, how do you make an animation like this? I think it's the main concept you need to be able to understand in a 2D game is that to make an animation, you don't need an MP4 file. You usually use a sprite sheet, which is just a series of images, kind of like an old school film, and the engine itself or the game framework interpolates those into a video. And so this very short article just explains that concept, and we're churning out more articles like that.
So I think I know this answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So who do you think your ideal persona is? What is that person, what's that person trying to accomplish? Tell me a little bit about your users.
I think when we started out, we had this hunch that it's all going to be kids. And I think I've definitely been surprised by the initial set of users we've got. A lot of our users are older people, people who are not really coders, but are just kind of like games and built games when they were really young. And so we have a lot of people in their 40s using this product to just build. They usually have a set of game ideas on their shelf, and they're building them out now with our tool. I think in the longer term, there'll be all different kinds of users. There will be kids. There will be people who are kind of developers, but more maybe artists who are using this. And you've also got people who want to make kind of mobile games and other kind of games to earn an income from it. So that's another set of users.
Yeah, I asked because I was so in a past life, or years and years ago, I was a CTO of a company that basically built educational software for kids. I guess it was more at curriculum, basically sold curriculum to middle schools and high schools. And so the number one, curriculum that this company sold was literally game design. And that was the whole point, was just getting game design curriculum into thousands of high schools and middle schools, kind of mostly throughout the US, but, even in a few like Canada and other countries as well. So and now my brain is working. I'm like, I should probably just introduce you to the person that runs that company, because maybe there's some It's like
Totally.
they were
Yeah.
using Game Maker and then Construct or Construct. I still don't know how you pronounce it. Construct 3. And so I just wonder if there's like maybe there's a better way, a newer way to introduce people to game design that gets them actually writing code. Because one of the limitations of those platforms as well is, you learn this kind of new paradigm and you're basically learning coding, but it's kind of a weird language, right? With those tools like Scratch and all those is you're learning this block-based programming language, which is good because it's like critical thinking, but it's also just like a layer on top of what you eventually want people to get to anyways. And so maybe the introductory layer doesn't need to be this block-based weird programming language. Maybe the introductory layer is just English communication skills, but then you still get to the same spot and maybe you can get there a lot faster. That'd be my thought. I don't know if that's true or not, but if it was true, that would be a pretty great way to potentially teach people.
If platforms like yours take off with, I guess, the people who are learning or interested, it's very akin to like, when we're all learning front end development, you hit Command S and then the page refreshes, right? You have this really short feedback loop to then like, oh, I turned it blue, I can turn it red, I can do all these different things. And if you're curious about the code, you can go look at it and play with it. Nowadays, like using the lovables or these builders, like, there's like a lot of people don't want to look at the code anymore. I think a lot of that's interesting when you're learning something because it's just JavaScript at the end of the day. Plus, you have like the code viewer. Like, I could see a lot of people like having that short feedback loop and just getting passionate or like they like engineering all of a sudden, right? Which is super cool. Like, yeah, games are a really great way to like intro people. It's just kind of like front end, right? You have that visual thing that like keeps you going. It's kind of addicting. It's really fun. You get this nice feedback loop.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like in a similar way to web dev, right? When there's a new technology that comes out, people can be really hardcore about, oh, you need to be able to understand every single concept from its most fundamental to be a true web developer or a true game developer in this case. And I think at least what I've personally found is when I'm learning something, if I'm excited about it, I can learn much faster. And so if I can make progress quickly, I end up learning a lot faster. And so with Waffle, every place where we've removed friction for people, I think we found like it excites people more that they can make more and more progress on their game, and that's what actually motivates you to keep learning.
Yeah, I think that early and constant feedback is important when you're learning something new. It's like you want it to be challenging just enough so you feel like you're making progress, but if you go too long without seeing progress, most people give up, right?
Yeah.
And so I do think that there's this nice middle ground where maybe you can get far enough, fast enough where you kind of get addicted and then you're like, well, I'll figure out this painful thing that maybe doesn't quite work right and I have to write a little code or learn a little bit about code. And then if you can provide the right path for them to learn that, I think that's potentially a great avenue to go down. I also do think, and I'm sure you have a high conviction on this, but my question is there going to be one app that rules them all? Is Lovable or Replit or Bolt, are they going to become so good that they can just do everything? And maybe they send you down different paths for games or apps or whatever. Or is there a place where actually you can get better results if you have a team that's just hyper focused on one specific niche that wants to make the best experience possible for someone who wants to just build a game? Because the person that wants to just build a game probably doesn't want to just go out and build a normal app or a website, right? They probably want to build a game. They want to learn how to build games. So that's my question. I guess what do you think about that? Because obviously I think you have a viewpoint on that.
Yeah, there's a couple of thoughts I have on that. For one is like there's features in our app which are so specific to game development that it doesn't really make sense for more generic players like Lovable or Cursor to build them in. So if you look at, for example, I'll show you right now, the assets tab, right? So this is, you can see how Americanized the AI is because I asked it for a football and it gave me an American football. But we have an asset tab where you can generate any kind of asset in different categories, so cartoons or pixel art or whatever. And we also have these huge libraries of assets that you can just drag and drop into your game. The same with sounds and the same with fonts. And so these are like things which are very specific friction points for people who are building games. And it comes back to that thing of trying to make it as easy as possible to make progress early on in your project. And that's where like we try to focus a lot. Another thing I think is that you have different kinds of users who are at different levels of proficiency, right? So we have users who have built small, like users who've built small indie games before tend to actually already be familiar with things like cursor and things like that, and they have the things that they like about it and the things that they don't like about it. In the same way that professional developers use cursor and vibe coders use more like lovable type products, I think we will see in the game development space basically the cursor equivalent of Unity and so on. And there are already like multiple products out like Nitrode that help more professional game developers. But that's not really helpful for people that just want to get started and don't have coding experience.
What models write the best games?
Dude, you read my mind. That's literally my next question is like, I want to know the models, like, and if you have opinions on what are better for, if you use one model across the board, if you have differing opinions on different things, and then like, like how did you, like, what's the rough, you don't have to go into all the details, but what's like the rough stack of how you orchestrated this thing?
Yeah, I mean, we've tried out a bunch of models for different things. And we started off with, I think, Claude Sonnet 4, or maybe we had something before that, but Claude Sonnet 4 we used for a decent chunk of time. That was pretty good. We experimented at the time with Gemini, and we found, despite like Gemini 2.5 Pro ranking higher in a lot of coding benchmarks, it performed much worse for games. And then we've recently switched over to GPT-5, and that's been really good for us so far. And we're now exploring more of like an agent mode. And there we're looking at all the different kind of coding agents that are out there, like Cursor CLI, Claude Code, Codex, and so on.
Awesome. And how did you, what other tools are you using under the hood to wire it up? Obviously,
I mean, we use Mastra.
which is great. Yeah.
Yeah,
But anything else that you can share, like just to give people a glimpse in like, how did you think about building some of this?
Yeah, so there's with these kind of tools, there's like a couple of different products that end up being used. So you normally have your agent orchestration, for which, yeah, we use Mastra. You also have this interesting problem around applying code edits. So products like Lovable, Bolt, Waffle, they need to go and make very precise edits in files. And when you have a very large model trying to make that edit, it's one, like quite expensive and slow, but also sometimes less accurate to have the model rewrite the entire file. And so instead what you have is a large model like GPT-5 will go and make a code snippet, and then you have a fast apply model, which is like a tiny AI model trained specifically to do the edit. And so we're using a fast apply model as well. We use Morph for that. It's another YC company. And we use another YC company called Relays for re-ranking code files. And that comes with like how we manage our context.
It's very sick. And yeah, Morph had a coding model that just came out like months ago now, but that's dope. Is it fast when when you use a fast apply model? Like, is it really like, is it just like lightning fast and it only knows diffs and like applying them?
I mean, yeah, you can try it on the playgrounds for both Morph and Relays. They're super fast. And yeah, like we haven't done latency tests on how fast they are on our product, but like from the playground, they're super fast.
We're doing like something similar, not Lovable or anything like that, but we're building like, we have these things called master templates, and we're currently adding like an agentic chat that allows you to take the templates and merge the code into your code base. So then you could like, you see some sample code that you want to use for yourself. And in that experience, like actually merging code with a big model is so slow. It's faster to rewrite the whole file, like you mentioned too. We saw that too. But we should probably use a fast apply model as well.
Yeah, you definitely should look into it. I don't know how well it would work for the use case or that you're working with, but for us, it's worked really well.
Probably will work. We'll try it out. I'll let you know.
Yeah. Now we have our takeaway is homework, right? more for us to do and play around with. But yeah, anything else that you want to talk about today, Manuj?
I think I just want to give a quick shout out for our game jam. For anyone who's tuning in right now or later on in the and watching the video afterwards, like I showed, it's really like Waffle super beginner friendly, and we have a really friendly community on Discord who are super happy to play test your games and give you feedback. We have $100 prize every week, and there's still 5 days left on this week's theme, but we'll have one every week. So you can just go on waffle.ai and join our game jam if you like.
All right. So anyone, if you've ever wanted to build a game, go to waffle.ai and just build something. You probably do it. I imagine you can build something somewhat interesting or cool in 20, 30 minutes, right?
Yeah, and we have a free tier, so you don't need to put in your credit card details to try it out.
Awesome.
So I'm very excited about what y'all are working on. It's, like I said, it's super dope.
Yeah. The kid in me is excited, and I just want to find time to play around with it.
Awesome. Yeah, it would be great to hear what you guys think about it too. And thanks for having me on the stream, guys. Have a good stream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you.
See
Take
you,
care.
Manuj.
Bye.
Dude, I kind of win $100, dude. Let's do this.
dude. If so, next we should someday do we got 15 minutes on competing live stream. See whose game is better.
Ooh, we should do that.
Yeah.
That'd be really sick.
Or get the team when we get the team in person, it's like we take an hour and everyone just has to see who can build the sickest game or use maybe we use like some people can build games, some people can build apps. I don't know. Kind of fun, friendly competition.
And their product looks super clean, and they're using us, which makes me feel very good.
Yeah. More people should go try it. All right. Yeah, but we have another guest. The show must continue on. So this was very interesting to me because, if you remember, if you've been watching, our show for a while or been following what we've been doing at Mastra for a bit, that we released what I like to think is the first ever MCP as a course, which essentially was the ability for you to use an MCP server to learn about Mastra. So you can use it in Claude Desktop or Cursor or any of your coding agents that support MCP. And it would literally teach you how to write Mastra code. And that was the whole idea. It was kind of the first ever course as an MCP server. And, we talked to Richard from Naphtha AI, and he was working on some stuff in this space. And then funny enough, the same week I talked to Akeil, and Akeil's also been working on some stuff in the same space. So I want to bring Akeil on and talk a little bit about his background, what they're doing, and learn a little bit about it.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah, so welcome to the show, Akeil.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Shane. I'm excited to show you everyone what I've been working on.
Yeah, so maybe before we get started, can you tell just a little bit of information about you and kind of what you're doing kind of at CMU?
Yeah. So like you said, my name is Akeil. I'm a junior studying artificial intelligence and business at Carnegie Mellon right now. And I have taken a lot of human-computer interaction classes, which I think has kind of geared my thinking towards specifically when it comes to agents, how are humans actually achieving their end goals when it comes to working with these agents from a conversational perspective? Because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing, is we're having conversations with agents to reach some sort of end goal. And over the summer, I spent a lot of time working with my little siblings, trying to get them more active when it comes to vibe coding or getting more into using programming tools. And myself, I was just tinkering, and I came across the Mastra course, and I thought it was such a cool concept and such a cool way to basically get someone from any skill set and basically be able to translate that into achieving the end result. With the Mastra course, it was learning the Mastra framework. But I was like, this is a really interesting way to just teach programming in general. I wonder if you can kind of extract this concept and apply it to other things. And that's basically how what I'm building now, Basics, came about. So Basics is a course that inspired from Mastra, is a platform that supports MCP taught courses. So you can come on, create your course, and then actually host and put that platform out on an MCP server that will then run inside Cursor. So instead of with the Mastra course, it's the Mastra course, it's specifically that comes from your MCP server. This MCP server kind of specializes in just offering courses in general, whether that's coming from API documentation or completed projects, or basically like 0 to 1 path guides for people who've never been programming before and they want to go from a very general understanding of things to a more experienced and complex understanding of things to be able to build their own tools. Yeah.
So it sounds like the goal is basically, you take some of the ideas that we kind of came up with and turn it into an actual platform where others can contribute courses that can then be, shared and taken by individuals. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And I think that's even what Mastra as a framework even enables, is like your tool enables for people to come up with even more innovations and inventions in the future, which is why I'm like such a fan. And I was like so inspired by the MCP course that you guys offered. And I plan on expanding beyond just programming and getting into different interfaces. We're currently working on like a desktop overlay interface that's able to like understand your screen. And in theory, it should be able to almost teach you anything if it can understand what you're doing, how you're doing it, and give you live feedback. And right now, the beta version of it is using Mastra. So I'm excited to continue to build with Mastra and be inspired by what Mastra's doing to extend the future of MCP powered courses.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, what kind of courses do you have right now? Other
Yeah.
than, what are the first courses you built?
Yeah, so the first course I built was Mastra. Obviously, I basically took a look at what you guys did and saw if I could like extend it. So I added a few more things. I think I added a RAG course and then an advanced workflow course, basically straight from your documentation. And then I kind of expanded into other things I was tinkering with. I did voice agents. I looked at some other frameworks like LiveKit and worked with GPT Realtime to develop some courses on that as well. And then I wanted to kind of create some courses that were more project oriented. So you join the course with the goal of reaching some sort of end product. And the first course, I basically tried to think, for a lot of people getting into programming, what might be an exciting first course to build. And the thing that came to mind was building a portfolio website. So right now there's basically a course that will walk you through the basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and it'll get you to the endpoint of building your own portfolio website that you can not only like show off to, let's say, a job or anyone else wants to see your projects, but you can also explain like how you built it. And for like a non-technical person who finds programming very intimidating, basically learning programming through a conversation, I think is probably one of the lowest barrier to entry ways of learning something for that the longest time seemed to have such a high barrier to entry in order to like actually master.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, writing code in general is intimidating to someone because it looks like it's a different language, right? It's just like me trying to learn Chinese, right?
Yeah.
And I put myself in those shoes anytime I try to teach someone any kind of, coding or programming. And so if you can lower that barrier, you can, kind of ease people into it through hands-on learning. And I do think, most people, I can't speak for everyone, but most people, hands-on learning is the best way to actually learn. So rather than reading it in a book or trying to, read the theory or watch a video on the theory of it, like actually doing it yourself is the best way. And one way that the way that most people do is they read a guide, right? And they try to follow along, or they follow along with a video, and that's hands-on. There's a good element of learning to that. But I do think if you could actually, it can be more engaging if you can ask questions along the way.
Yeah.
And you can actually try to, when you're not sure, you can get immediate feedback rather than waiting until, you could, if it's in the case of like an instructor-led course, waiting till you can talk to the professor the next week or, the teacher the next day. So I do think that instant ability to get feedback is really important. And I think that's one of the cool things that this unlocks.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of the AI tutoring platforms out there right now kind of add on to existing coursework. So you kind of have your course or you have your PDF of your slide deck, and the AI tutor basically takes that and teaches you the information from there. Whereas this basically is from basically a bottom-up approach of, now I actually want the agent to have the course in its backlog, so you don't actually see the course information, but the agent is trained on the actual structured course that's like vetted, ensuring that you actually will learn, like multiple people will go through the course. Similar to our course at CMU, the reason they're so successful is because like they've basically generated a formula for how to get people from A to B in this certain topic. And that's essentially what Basics enables is you're taking these structured vetted courses, and instead of just adding to an existing PDF or just adding a tutor to that, you're basically allowing people to go through a structured vetted course that's taught in a similar way as if I had like a one-on-one tutor and we were basically talking about, okay, how can I get you from point A to B, and how can we have a conversation based off of your level of experience, based off of what you understand, to really ensure that you're getting to the end point, instead of just seeing, okay, this is where you are, here's what I think could help you get even better, if that makes sense.
So like that totally makes sense. Like, you know how like in first year CS is like the weeder courses, that's pretty much wants you to drop out essentially. Like, do you see this form of learning a lot more effective, or maybe people won't drop out because they have a better way of learning? Have you tried to write any courses of your own course material that you're taking in school right now?
Definitely, right? I think this is a natural progression when it comes to programming. I think in the earlier days of programming, when most things were in assembly, when there was a transition to more compiled language, it enabled more people to get into programming. And the same thing with the development of Python. I think that courses or a platform like this basically enables more people to get into such a powerful tool, which is programming, and it makes it less intimidating, because instead of seeing this intimidating jargon, you're seeing something you're familiar with, which is English, and you're learning through conversations instead of intimidation, which a lot of these typical intro level programming courses tend to do, which I think there's some merit to it. Is you have the people who actually want to apply real critical thinking to solving problems, and a lot of those classes are more problem solving classes necessarily than programming classes. But I think there are ways to do that through conversations, and that's actually what we're experimenting with at CMU. We are now talking to a couple of professors to work with some of our intro level programming classes to develop a course that uses it as a supplemental tool, and basically in addition to homework, if anyone's interested in basically refining some of the course information that's being taught, to see if it actually has potential as a real way or an alternative way completely to teaching programming and getting people thinking critically in a way that is more comfortable to the majority of masses who learn typically through some sort of conversation.
Yeah, because also a lot of the course material for intro programming is already in the model's general intelligence, right?
Yeah.
So like the course material just needs to be surfaced a certain way. But
Mhm.
then if you're like in upper division classes, you're getting very specific, maybe like the professor has, certain nuances to how they do things. That can all be encoded in the course material and then served to the user. So like, this comes back to what we were talking with these guys from NAPTA AI. Like, you're only as good as your course material. So like, how do you kind of solve that problem?
Yeah, I think that's where the privilege of going to Carnegie Mellon kind of comes in. Is like one of the top computer science programs. There's so many researchers, professors, students who are constantly doing things like that. And I've basically been taking full advantage of that, reaching out to as many professors, students, anyone who gravitates to this kind of format of teaching in a conversation way, using agents. Basically, anyone who's found that interesting, I've been trying to collaborate with them to actually build real course content and infrastructure for people to be able to come to this platform and say like, hey, like this is not only a cool way of learning, but like the courses that are actually on this platform genuinely taught me how to achieve my goal, rather than let's say like if I were to just go to the model itself and say like, hey, teach me how to code, like it could go a million different places and it may get you to one end goal, but like that may not be a very like structured and vetted out end goal. Whereas like these universities, that's all they do. They're in the business of creating structured courses to get people from point A to B. And I think it's like the perfect people to collaborate when it comes to creating courses for a platform like this.
Yeah, absolutely. So you probably knew I was going to ask, but can you show it? What can you show us? Can we see?
Yeah.
Can we see how it works? Can the audience, because obviously we have people watching live. So if you are watching this live, if you have questions, please ask away. And otherwise, if you're watching this later, I think people would love to see what's there today, and then what are your plans for the future? Like, how are you going to continue to expand it, add more functionality?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'm just gonna go and share my screen. Yeah, so this is essentially what the first thing that most people will see. So this is the Master course that got developed out. And essentially here is where you are able to actually track your progress through the course. So instead of a typical course platform, like let's say Udemy or Canvas for completing courses where you actually see the course content, here the main goal is to see like, okay, how far along am I in this course? Because most of the teaching is going to be happening over here in Cursor. So what I have is basically like a conversation trail of me using the basics MCP agent just for the sake of time. But you can see how it works is you essentially come here and put in your email, and that basically then informs the agent of your account, your preferences, which I'll go into a little bit later, and some of the courses that you're enrolled in.
Can you go ahead and give us a click a zoom? Can you Control plus, Command plus, just give us a little more zoom. There we go.
Is that good?
Yeah, way better.
Okay, cool. So we started the Mastra course, and it gives us a little bit of information about it. And then it starts giving out the lesson content. So before we get into any coding, it basically explains some of the basics of what's going on. So it's talking about like, what is an agent? And this course content actually comes straight from the Mastra course. It's what I typically use to develop the system that is now the basics MCP. So basically it goes over kind of the core features of like, what is an agent? What does an agent look like in Mastra? And one of the coolest things is I wanted it to really feel like a conversation. So after that lesson content has been presented, so this lesson content is static. That'll always be the same when you create the course. It's kind of like having a page from the textbook. But similar to in a class, like when a teacher is necessarily using a page from the textbook, like the conversations that follow up from that page is not always the same. And typically you get to gauge like how students are engaging with whatever you just taught by asking questions. So that's why I really had a focus on asking these follow-up questions to kind of gauge how well is the user really understanding the lesson that's being taught. So here it's asking like, why do agents make autonomous decisions instead of following fixed predictable outcomes or instructions? And I basically gave the answer of, so the agent has more agency to do things, and it may not be, it can do things that are a little bit less predictable. And basically it kind of affirmed that I actually understood the topic here of why would we use agents versus just like very structured code outputs. And it basically built on top of my understanding by one, having me engage as a user with the actual course content, but then affirming that I actually understood things before I moved on to the next step. So you see a kind of similar, kind of flow of things. But I was like, this is really good for beginners. But for people who probably are using the Mastra course right now, typically they probably want to use it as this next generation of documentation. Basically being able to like understand how to do things, and they may not want to be like babied or like tutored in a way that maybe a beginner might want to. So then I created an intermediate mode that essentially does the same thing, but it kind of takes a step back on the questions where it'll give you the lesson content, and if let's say you don't actually want to engage with the lessons and you're saying, I don't know, you can basically say like, stop asking questions. And that entire like question part of things goes away if you feel like it's not actually beneficial to the learning that you're doing. So those are some of the core kind of concepts and how I've kind of deviated a little bit from what the initial foundation of the Mastra MCP course had. And I tried to kind of hone in a little bit more of the learning psychology aspect of things with really focusing on conversational based learning. So you still have the parts of the course where it'll go in and implement things. It'll make sure things are set up. So it's checking our node version here. It's basically ensuring that our project is set up properly here. But one of my favorite parts of the course, and that I'm still experimenting with to this day, is so with this lesson, understanding system prompts, you basically are taught like, here are the key aspects of what makes a really good system prompt. And here, you're basically asked to apply that in a way that's not even a question, it's a challenge. It's basically like, okay, I just taught you about system prompts. Now I want you to basically tell me how you want me to create a system prompt based off of the information that I just taught you. So what this does is it extends on the learning aspect of asking questions even more by challenging the user to then get hands-on when it comes to learning, but also like creating the end goal of building our agent in this case. So basically I said, okay, I just want to make an agent for finance. Is this good? And basically what it was able to do was it took my prompt and it said, hey, this was a good start, but here's what you probably want to do to make your agent a little bit more effective. Be specific, use clear capabilities, behavioral guidelines and constraints. And essentially what this is doing is it's taking your understanding of what makes a good system prompt, because from this response, basically the agent is saying, okay, I just taught the user about what makes a good system prompt. Maybe they didn't take away everything I just taught them about it. Let me apply it to basically the answer they give and what they were trying to do. So here it gives a better example of what a good system prompt is, and it explains why it's better. So now when you're going to build a system prompt and you are thinking about that like lesson about what makes a good system prompt, you're not only just thinking about the content that was like given to you, but you're thinking about the example that you worked with the agent to actually get to the end goal of. So basically I just copied that exact prompt in and it was like, net wonderful. So before any code was generated, it basically said, wonderful. Now that I know you actually understand what we're doing, let me go and actually like create this agent for you. So it gives a little outline of what it's going to do. And then basically just like the Mastra course, it goes in and actually does it. And yeah, that's kind of a workflow of how my high level vision for the basics course, what my high level vision for the basics course is to really take this step back from just giving users outputs, but actually like having a conversation to, one, gauge understanding, but two, really, really make sure that the user's not only understanding what they're doing, but they're able to like build on top of this foundation of any information they're being presented. So right now it works really well with programming, and it works really well within Cursor or any other tools that MCPs are supported in. But I think there's an argument that can be made that conversational based learning, especially in a world where it's really easy to just generate answers, might be kind of the future of education that we see in general. I think having a conversation with someone is really how you can evaluate how well they understand what you're trying to assess them with, because it's hard in the moment to basically like generate an answer for that. And if I'm like having a conversation with you and you're asking me follow-up questions in places where you think I have gaps, it basically allows you to both vet and actually teach me in a way that's a little bit more enforcing than, let's say, you showing me lecture content and then quizzing me and then showing me lecture content and quizzing me. Because instead of optimizing for getting the quiz answers right, now I have to optimize for understanding, because I'm going to be evaluated through a conversation. So building out kind of an infrastructure to do that with different domains beyond programming and adding more voice capabilities. So the conversation is not just you reading the chat and it performing actions, but it's you generally talking to an agent that's basically trying to achieve this goal of teaching and evaluating how well you understand through conversations.
Well, dude, I'll tell you, I'm very impressed. It was very cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I do like the fact, and I don't think you showed this in this demo, but you can basically install one MCP server and switch between these different courses, right? So as you add more courses, you can basically install it once and then select your course and move between different courses, track your progress across all of them. And so I do think that's just a really cool way. You know, obviously for programming works great. I think it'll work really well for other things in the future. And I do believe that, you know, they do say, you know, and I've found this to be true in my own experience, is that when you can teach someone something, when you can really explain something, when you can converse with someone and I can teach you, then it kind of cements the knowledge in my brain a lot more, right? And I do think that building it into more of a conversation and asking open-ended questions, it's similar to like asking them to basically gauge their understanding and explain it in an open-ended way in a similar, it's almost like you're asking the user to teach the agent what it already taught you. It's like, reteach me what I already taught you. If you could do that, ideally you'll have locked in more of the knowledge than maybe you would have otherwise.
Yeah.
For the courses that may be non-programming, it still would be like MCP, but you'd be like an OpenAI or Claude desktop or like those types of things where, yeah, it's still the same concept, but maybe there's more diagrams or I don't know. I'm just thinking about biology, which is through that like anatomy or something. It would very much be a conversation about what mitochondria is, how does it look, what's ATP. Like those are the types of things that, and people already are using OpenAI and ChatGPT, the surface area is a problem to solve because those guys support MCP.
Yeah.
So then you're good to go. So
And I do think I use, so I have a interest in, like Greek and Roman history, right? Like the times of in antiquity, right? It was like Roman generals and on commanders and all that. But I don't have any structured course, right? It's more like I just ask questions sometimes if I, hear some interesting tidbit of information, and I kind of go down this, train, and then I leave, right? And there's no like, this is a basic understanding. So I do think if you could have, ChatGPT or Gemini or, Claude, and you could say, here's the actual structure of a course that teaches this stuff that's probably already in its knowledge base, but it structures in a way where I know like I'm getting like a good breadth of knowledge. And then of course that's going to teach me more where I know more specific questions I can ask, because I can kind of go down, the rabbit hole of things that interest me more and ask more questions, and the stuff that interests me less, I'll just kind of breeze over it and maybe care less about. So I do think that as a way to learn, I've been learning a lot just having conversations with, mostly ChatGPT is my daily driver, but I use Claude Desktop and Gemini as well to kind of mix it in here and there. But I do think that if you could provide a more structured way and something that, gamify it a bit so it tracks my progress and be like, did you actually like complete it? Okay, well, I got halfway through. I should probably just complete this thing so I actually like round out my knowledge. And I think people are do crave that validation that they actually completed something. And so I think there's something about giving someone the ability to track their progress and then actually know that, okay, I did complete something that was like, gives me that breadth of knowledge of whatever the topic is.
I have a feature request or something. Have you all gone through like Wikipedia rabbit holes where you start at one thing and you go down? It's kind of a course in a way because you're the one self-guiding each Wikipedia page that you're doing. So here's my feature request. Like if you're in OpenAI, and I think you should have like a suggestion tool, like suggested course tool. Because if I ask a question about the Roman Empire, that tool should be like, hey, I hear you looking about the Roman Empire. We actually have a course on that. Would you like to take it? Would I like to take it now? Oh, sure, I'll take it. And then, just do it, learn something, and then move on, That's what happens to me in Wikipedia. I go there, like Marcus Aurelius. Who the fuck is that guy? I'll go click there. It's like, oh, what is Stoicism? Okay, let's go there. And it's literally like kind of pre-built a course for me through my own, like, I don't know, curiosity.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people would just be like, if you saw like the little tool thing that says, hey, we have a course on this. Do you want to take it right now? You say, yeah, sure. Boom. And then you're in it.
Yeah. For sure. I will definitely implement and then quote you on that when I get that implemented.
Always good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Akeil. Well, appreciate you coming on. So how do people find out and follow along with your progress? I know you're still, it's still relatively early days, but you are investing a lot of time and effort into building this. So I'm curious, how does someone track your progress or get updates?
Yeah. So you can go to basics, spelled normally U.com, and sign up for our beta. That should link to a form where you can basically sign up and say, hey, I'm interested in trying this and following along with the journey. And yeah, that's where most of the updates will come from for now. And any future developments, there'll basically be announcements from that website. Or you can follow me on LinkedIn as well. I'll probably announce a lot of updates on there. And that's my name, Akeil Smith, on LinkedIn, the CMU student.
Are you doing any internships this summer?
No. Last summer I worked on this. As of right now, my plan is to continue to work on this. But yeah, I haven't done any internships. Yeah, not yet.
Hit us up later. Just leave it at that.
Definitely will.
All right. Yeah. Well, basicsu.com, right? That's the URL. So basics, the letter u.com. Go check it out if you're interested in this kind of maybe the future of learning. At least I seem to think it is. I think others are starting
I
to
believe it.
come along and believe it as well. So check it out. And Akeil, we'll definitely have you back on again. Give us an
Yeah.
update in 3 or 6 months and see how things are going.
Would love to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Great work, dude. I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah, we'll see you, Akeil.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you, dude.
All right, dude.
Dude, that was sick. That
Yeah.
was sick. That the MCP education, I think it's gonna blow up in a good way. So,
Yeah.
we were the first, but obviously that's not our main squeeze, right?
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
glad people got inspired.
I mean, that was always kind of the goal when we talked about it. I was like, hey, we know we're not going to do this the best, but if we can get it out there and maybe inspire people to build more things around it. And we have had chats internally around building like an example or a template course, MCP course platform, like a Udemy or all those other education platforms. And we never did because it was just, it's not the main business, right? That's not what we want to do every day, but we are interested in it and we would love to see this idea take off. So it is interesting. I think as MCP becomes more and more common, we're going to see more and more people use it for interesting things. Education is just one. I think there's probably more things that it'll be used for. All new like tech has use cases people didn't imagine, right? And so I think that's maybe the interesting thing about this.
Yeah. Looks like he has good distribution too, being in school and chatting with the professors. So I would expect to see it grow.
Yeah, I do think so. And I think there's going to be more, we saw it last week, we saw it this week. I think we'll continue to see more and more of this.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Should we do some news?
Time for the news.
Before we do, if you're watching this, please like us, subscribe to us on YouTube. It's Master-AI on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, give us a like and a subscribe, and maybe leave us a 5-star review. And yeah, we'll leave it at that. We get some 5 stars only. Exactly. All right, we do have not a huge news day, which is good because you have a flight to catch and all. Anyways,
yeah. There's still some hitters on there. Some big moves would be happening.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So, first one. This one's from Anthropic. And Anthropic Anthropic just casually announces in a tweet, "We've raised 13 billion at 183 billion post-money valuation. It'll help us expand our capacity, improve model capabilities, and deepen our safety research."
And cash out people.
Yeah, exactly. And some early employees are buying some nice property on some islands somewhere. But yeah, money's flowing in. So they talk about their run rate, and they passed 5 billion 8 months later, fastest growing tech companies in history. And then grateful, and they can read more at their website. But yeah, they just raised a ton of money.
I wonder how much of it is carved out for employees, and then how much is it for future infrastructure costs that are obviously going up. But dude, 13 Bs. Imagine the wire transfer hitting the account. You see
It's like
so many zeros.
It's like you gotta get a widescreen to see all the zeros that are coming.
Yeah.
Like your MacBook, laptop screen isn't wide enough to see all the zeros.
No.
Like most of the banking websites probably don't have. I mean, I'm sure whatever they're using would, but I imagine my local bank doesn't usually deal with that many zeros in a wire transfer. But
Wow.
yeah, big news. I imagine we'll just not unexpected, right? Anthropic, Claude, especially for coding, is basically still the top, at least in our experience, and people still believe that. And there's I think it's carved out definitely a niche with Claude Code. So more to come. I imagine they're going to lean more into that, and obviously they want to capture other niches as well, but they seem to be kind of the top on coding.
Yeah, I could see more MCP things happening. I could see a lot they could do with that money. That's which they want, I'm sure.
And
don't poach our employees though.
Yes, yeah,
Stay away from us.
yeah. Please stay away from us. As much, not quite as deep of pockets, please.
Yeah.
We are going to continue on. This is a kind of a surprising Anthropic OpenAI collab. So sometimes competitors collab. So they did a pilot. This is on the OpenAI website, but Anthropic and OpenAI did an alignment evaluation, basically where they tested each other's models. Basically, tried to figure out if they could figure out ways to get it to not do what it's supposed to do. And so Anthropic was trying to essentially, quote unquote, hack or do some bad things to OpenAI models, and OpenAI did the same to Anthropic. And you can kind of it's kind of a long finding. So I'm not going to go through all of it. The summary is kind of the part we'll go through and encourage you all to read it if you are curious on their findings. But they talked about, and I think this was common, like jailbreaking and hallucination were common across both. Like Claude had issues, OpenAI had issues, and it's all stuff that we've kind of known. Right. So it's like instruction hierarchy, jailbreaking, hallucination, and, scheming. But yeah.
Surprised they work together.
Yeah. Sometimes competitors, have to work together. And, they do have like some examples, and I'm curious on how, I imagine because they work together, they want it to be relatively accurate. I do think they want to show Claude talks about it, or Anthropic talks about it all the time. They value safety, they value alignment, they value all these things. And so I guess this is them showing that a bit. Like, we're going to put our money where our mouth is and work across, model companies to make sure that we have, we're kind of aligning on some of the same standards and the same safety ideals. And so it's good to see. I'm not going to read,
Yeah.
to be honest, I'm just going to ask, it to summarize, and I'm not reading the whole results. This is a huge paper, but encourage you, if you are interested in security and model alignment and all that, you will probably learn quite a bit from this.
If we see OpenAI do these with other model companies, it's very interesting because they definitely want to start owning the developer experience, and that is multi-model, as we know from different people's companies that's already here. So it may be like maybe it's all in service of a bigger vision, doing these alignments and stuff.
Yeah, potentially. And I think
Almond wants it all.
Yeah, I mean, they do for sure. And I do think it's interesting. We talked when Manuj was on earlier. They're using multiple models for Waffle, right? I think it's pretty common. You find models that work slightly better at certain things, and some of it's based on feel, and some of it's based on real usage and evals and things like that. And so you're not just going to use the same model or the same company. So making sure that there's some standards that kind of span across models, especially like how we think about safety and security and all that stuff, that's a good thing. We should spend time on that. Well, at least the companies that are raising billions of dollars should definitely spend time on that.
Totally.
All right. Continuing on with some OpenAI news. GPT real time last week was announced. Basically, it was productionized, right? It was officially launched.
Mm-hmm.
They've had the real time API for a bit, but they're just making it generally available. So ideally, that means they've fixed most of the major issues. It's kind of ready for production use cases. They obviously are leading with some big name case studies, as you'd expect, with Zillow, T-Mobile, StubHub, Oscar Health, Lemonade. So a bunch of different use cases across industries. And yeah, they just talk about how GPT real-time voice works and the quality and definitely they want to encourage more people to use voice capabilities.
They want that part of the industry as well. They want the voice agents. They want it all. The speech-to-speech models are really sick. You can talk to them. They do tool calling. We have support for GPT real-time through our voice adapters and Nostra. The only bad thing is it's very expensive. And I think we had the Goose on here, and they were saying that VAPI as a pipeline instead of the real-time. So I'm curious. I mean, if you have money, you'll probably just use GPT real time. But for those who don't, I don't know if it really scales still.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I don't know, I didn't read enough into this to know if they changed the pricing at all, but it's just for common use cases. It just doesn't, the economics don't work. But you have to imagine that's going to continue to get better over time, right? But there is something about the flexibility to be able to configure different models that you don't get with GPT real time. I did think this was interesting, right? New in the real time API, you can use remote MCP servers. So they want you to be able to tie in like MCP servers and actually, use that with real time. Dude, we should try the master course through real time MCP server. We don't have a remote MCP server yet for the master course, candidly. So it wouldn't quite work today. But I am curious, like you could just voice talk through, talk with an MCP server essentially. But it is good to see, MCP was a standard created by Anthropic. So again, they're using the standard, which is good. There's MCP is getting even more usage across, now not just with LLMs, but also with real-time voice.
In terms of the pricing, they say that it's been reduced by 20%. So $32 for minimum audio input tokens, 64 for audio out. Seems still pricey to me, but you could easily get 1 million tokens, dude. That's so easy to do these days.
Yeah, I think that some of the teams that were building voice agents that we talked to that were really in it basically said that what the numbers that I remember hearing where there's like basically like twice as expensive as it would need to be in order to be for their specific use case, which is more of a general voice agent. Now, again, everyone's economics are different, and so it'll work for some people, especially if they're high value calls, right? Maybe real-time voice works if it's, a law firm where every call is potentially, $100,000 contract, case or something, then yeah, maybe you use a voice agent to handle some of that inbound or something. But I do think that it's still a little bit expensive for just the average use cases. But 20% now, 20% in 6 months, 20% 6 months after that, it starts to become more reasonable.
Yeah, the economics will eventually catch up, hopefully. For now, I would just play with it and see.
And last, this was more not necessarily news, not an announcement, but that people on the team, I do often share just things that we're reading and things that we found interesting. And OpenAI recently had, I don't actually, it's probably not that recent. OpenAI in the past has a documentation or a guide on optimizing LLM accuracy. It's fairly long, so we're not going to go through it. But if you go to platform.openai.com, you can look in their docs. They have a very comprehensive guide on just like how you should, basically it's context engineering. I would call this a context engineering guide in a sense. Like it just talks you through how you can optimize context for LLM, specifically OpenAI models, but it's pretty general purpose. It would work across all models. Talks about prompt engineering, RAG, fine tuning, how you should think about it, when you should consider one or the other, and how you should like prioritize them. So I think it's a very good primer if you're interested in learning more about context engineering. We've been talking about that quite a bit. This is a good guide for you to read or again, have one of your favorite models summarized for you.
I thought that was one thing that was interesting here was like the break even. They have this like, there's like, they're measuring accuracy, and for them, the break even accuracy, because anytime it's not accurate, it costs money to escalate to a human, right? So the break even accuracy is 81%. So still, that's a B, right, in class. So if people, I think most sort of new users expect all these things to work 100%, but even OpenAI's thing is 81% confidence, right?
Yeah, how much accuracy is good enough for production? And I think it's, in some cases, I think people just need to be realistic with the capabilities of the model. Just because it's not 100% accurate doesn't mean it's not useful. And I think that is like maybe what you're trying to do is too ambitious for what the models can do today. That's possibly true. But with the right set of guardrails and the right, expectations, it can obviously do some pretty amazing things. So Yeah,
So
a good.
you have to plan for the failure cases as much as the success ones, and that's what we kind of tell people about evals and just tracking all this stuff. Because if you're in production, every mistake will be an escalation of an hour spent, $1 spent. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
All right. So we'll talk a little bit about XAI. They feels like they've been a little quiet lately, but I don't know if this is huge news, but they basically have this was announced last week, a new agentic coding model, which is, I think they call it Grok Code Fast 1.
Yep.
And it's really an agentic coding model that, performs coding related tasks, but it's supposed to be just, again, it's kind of a fast model. So it's quick. I imagine, like I do, it looks like they're announcing it with GitHub Copilot and Windsurf. Have not tried it. It's free for a limited amount of time. I don't know if because it's a fast model, if it's maybe used for more autocompletes and things like that, I would imagine.
Probably, yeah. Or the fast supply stuff that Manuj was talking about. You could probably do a merge and a diff.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is a result of them getting roasted for not being good at coding, like on Twitter, and then now they're
Maybe.
kind of focusing in.
Yeah, maybe they had to come back with some kind of response to handle the hate that
I
they
remember-
were receiving.
I think it was like Theo who was like roasting them about Grok's not the best model compared to Claude, etc.
Yeah, it
Well,
was like it's best on benchmarks, but obviously, like,
not in real life or whatever.
yeah, not in real life. Maybe it doesn't hold up across all things. Which, taking a tangent, I've been seeing, GPT-5. So, Manuj said they moved to GPT-5. They love it. I've heard a lot of people say they use GPT-5. They love it. I use it as my daily driver. So I do like it, right? I like GPT-5. But I have to, if you're listening in chat, please tell me your experience. But I've seen all the things that GPT-5 has scored the best on math, right? I've seen that it solved something that had never been solved before. That's great that it can solve something that's never been solved before. It also can't solve things that have been solved before 1,000 times, 100,000, a million times. It sucks at basic math. I literally every week since GPT-5 launches come out, I've been just talking to it, asking it questions, asking it to do some basic calculations, and not even on purpose, but I'm just noticed that doesn't seem right. Like something about that math doesn't add up in my head. Like logically seems like something's off. So today it was like, oh, sorry, I misplaced a decimal point. That's kind of a big deal,
How do you
dude.
do that? Calculators don't even do that.
Dude, that's a big deal if you're off by one decimal point. And the answer was like, it's either 23 million or 2.3 million. That's a big deal. And like,
That's huge.
so I don't know where everyone's getting that GPT-5 is good at math. It's terrible. I will tell you, it is not good at math. You can't trust it. Now, will they make it better? I hope so. But just give it a damn calculator tool, It's like, just give it a tool. Calculators are solved,
No, LLMs aren't good with numbers, right? So maybe that's it.
Well, it isn't, but I'm just like that. You should just give it a tool, and it would have solved that problem easily because it was just basic algebra. And there was a meme going around when it was first launched of just some like basic algebra problems that it was getting wrong, and I tested that. It was true. I ran into it, last week with some issue. I ran into it just doing like some basic like equity calculation today, and I was like, that can't be right. And then I asked, and then it thought for 8 minutes or 3.5 minutes or something and said like, oh, you're right. And I love the status was like apologizing and recalculating. So it's like that was its internal status. Like I need to apologize because I got this wrong, but I need to think harder. And then it got it right. Like when I pushed it figured it out. But I shouldn't have to check its math, right? That's I wonder how many people are not checking it at all and just like taking it for what it's worth.
Probably a lot. But also, have you noticed that it's really slow?
It is,
Even if it's not reasonable. Probably the routing model part is slow, and then actually executing whatever is happening.
Yeah.
I don't know if people use it. But then, Manuj's thing was pretty fast when we saw it. So I don't know. Maybe it depends.
Yeah, maybe it's slightly better over the API versus through, good in ChatGPT, you have a ton of guardrails on it, right? That you have to manage. Maybe that adds extra latency that you don't get over the API. But I did hear, someone that we know is building a startup and they had switched to GPT-5 realized it slowed things down quite a bit, and they went back to 4.0. So I don't know. I think the results like are pretty good in my experience. Like overall, I'm not dissatisfied with it, but I do think there are some things it's not good at, math particularly, and seemingly worse than it was before. Like I didn't notice so many issues. Like I always ask.
Yeah.
I do a lot of stuff with enough stuff with numbers where I ask it to calculate things for me, and it just doesn't always get it right.
Yeah. And if it takes 3 minutes and then you're waiting the whole time and it was wrong, it's like a waste of time.
Yeah, I could have. In that case, it wasn't even that hard of a calculation. I could have done it myself.
Yeah.
Like I own a calculator. I can do this. Anyways, so another announcement. This one was came out August 28th. 1 week after launch, 45% of enterprise customers have enabled Cursor AI agents in Linear. Agents are rapidly becoming part of product teams of every size and the work being orchestrated in Linear. So this is cool in my opinion, because this is always the dream, right? With Codex and with these other tools, is that it basically just lives in your product, your product management system, your wherever you're managing your tasks, your issues, and you could basically just decide if you want to assign it to a person, assign it to an agent. Maybe the agent takes the first pass and a person comes in and validates and maybe throws it all out, or maybe uses it as a prototype. And if you can allow the PM or someone maybe less technical to say, like, this is the right interaction, now productionize it, maybe there's less back and forth time between engineering teams, design, product, especially for larger teams. And this is probably why there's such a big uptake of enterprise customers, right?
Yeah. And kind of like what Dex is doing, having the spec and the plans, like that could all just be linear tickets, and then you live and die by how good your tickets are.
Yeah, just right. If you write more detailed tickets, you're going to get better implementation. And the nice thing is, product managers should be pretty good at English. That's kind of part of the job. You got to write product specs and all that. So if you can really well define it, maybe work with an engineer that can tell you some of the technical details of like how they would maybe implement it. You could probably have some, break off some tasks and have some PRs that are reviewable. And again, I imagine 50% or less are actually mergeable as is, right? But if you can get the prototype out of the way, you can ensure that the UX, the UI patterns are right, the interactions are good. Maybe you can get further faster.
I mean, he does say that 45% have enabled it. Doesn't mean it actually is doing well. But
Yeah,
they are
exactly.
enabled.
Yeah. How many people? Yeah. How many people keep it after? And it's just like anything else. I don't think it's this miracle thing, but it's like one of these tools. I think you have to know how you want to use it. If you just turn it on and hope for the best, I don't think people are going to have good results. I think if you, as a team, kind of like what Dex had mentioned in the context engineering, meetup at YC, if you have a set process, if it's part of your development process, I think you could probably get something out of it, and it'd probably speed your team up. But if you don't, it could become a distraction, and it could actually add more work to the engineers because you're making them do something in a way that they could have just prompted, Cursor agent themselves, or just wrote the code themselves just as fast. So it is interesting to see, but I think we still have probably a long ways to go.
Yeah, I agree. Plus, at our company, our ticket writing skills are very bad. So I don't know how far it's
Yeah, we probably need to write we probably can't quite turn that on yet and have good
No.
results. So those one sentence ticket description but when you're small, like you have shared context, right? People understand what because you're talking about it. What you're meeting frequently enough where you can make those course corrections along the way. But yeah, that's probably why it's better for enterprise. That again, you have to get approval. You have to go through all these processes, so you have to be much more spec driven, requirements driven ahead of time in order to get anything approved. And maybe at that point, you can actually have it build the entire prototype or a huge chunk of the prototype before you even get in the hands of the engineering team. And so if you can allow the PM to basically get the rough prototype out, out and ready, so there's something to look at, that could be pretty useful, even if the code is basically thrown away.
Yeah, I want to meet someone who's actually using it in production or like in their work. So it'd be really cool to see how they like it.
Yeah, if anyone's listening is using Linear and Cursor background agents, hit us up. We want to talk to you. Come on the stream and tell us.
Yeah, show us a demo.
All right. Yeah, we've been going strong for hour 40. So last thing, this one is more just, for fun, because I enjoyed reading. It's always nice when there's a little drama on X.
This
So
one's good.
this one's good. So Paul from BrowserBase. Today we're announcing an unlikely partnership. We believe that agents need reliable, responsible web access. That's why we're partnering with Cloudflare in support of WebBot Auth and signed agents, a new standard to allow good bots to authenticate themselves. And then they go into details. They have a whole post. Okay, we'll come back to it. That's phase one of this setup. Phase two, the next up, we hear. Let me see. Yeah,
From our Lord and Savior.
Gary Tan, our friend. Well, Gary's a friend. Cloudflare browser-based Axis of Evil was not in my bingo card for 2025. Legalize AI agents. And then, it goes on to say, ultimately, if a user wants a browser to do an action on their behalf, they should be allowed. An open internet is exactly that, open, instead of requiring hall passes from intermediaries. And then Paul responds, whoa, Gary, signed agents is opt-in to our customers. You don't have to authenticate your agents, but to me, it makes sense. Captcha solving is a lose-lose game. Instead, we seek to represent our customers by brokering access on their behalf. TLDR, I want to help AI browse. And then as the final, which I thought was also great, Paul posts the next day, good morning from the Axis of Evil. And it's a picture of his entire team. Which is funny because we know Paul, we know Gary, we've had long conversations with both of them. So it is, it's always, I think it's probably healthy discourse to have this back and forth. I guess I'll let you can add some color. What do you think? And then I'll give you my opinion on the whole thing. But you have the back and forth with, obviously Paul from BrowserBase, Gary from YC. What's your takeaway?
So I think if it's opt-in, it's great. I just think that Cloudflare themselves branded, with their bot access, and I think they default enabled it too. They want to restrict agents from coming on sites and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
I do think Cloudflare came out and said they did not default enable it. There were some bugs where some customers had it enabled, but it was not intentional for those few customers, and it was. Now again, I can't validate that. I'm just that is what I heard. So I'm not a Cloudflare defender, but I will try to be accurate.
Yeah, to be accurate, that already put a bad taste in people's mouths, right? Like from 2 weeks ago. So then BrowserBase, even Paul said it's a very unlikely partnership, but I think it makes sense, and they should partner with other providers too to broker access on behalf of the agent. So you don't have to do captchas if you're a trusted source. I do believe that's a good thing. But then, our homies from Browser Use are trying to do, they're trying to compete with having these built-in capture tools and all these other tools you need so you can do whatever the hell you want. So I think from Gary's perspective, people should do whatever they want and not have the restrictions. But from Paul's perspective, it's actually might be easier if I work with Cloudflare to just bypass these checks,
Yeah.
So it's a lot of drama though.
Yeah, it's a it's fun drama. I agree with that assessment though. I do have concerns mostly just around Cloudflare's bigger plans. I do think that Cloudflare, if you go back, announced the idea of pricing content for agents, right? And now they have this paywall basically that you can enable.
Yeah.
Of course, you users can choose to enable it. Now you have this authentication mechanism where you can authenticate browser agents. I think they're trying to, if I were to predict, I think Cloudflare has this master plan, and whether it'll work or not, or whether it's actually all thought out, I don't know. They're smart people. I imagine some of this stuff's thought out. I think their master plan is allow content providers to gate access, allow authentication to happen, and then they collect money on the margins, as things come through. And it's a perfect business model. They're going to make so much money if they can become the Stripe for agent interactions across the internet.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the crux of Gary's point, is that maybe he can see a few steps ahead and could see where this is going. and know that, yes, this does kind of set the stage for Cloudflare to kind of gate priced access to content, which they've already talked about and they've been pushing. And that's where it concerns me a little bit, because I don't want, as much as I am a fan of content creators being able to charge for their content, I just think the open internet is great. I hate sites that ask me to pay money to read the content. Like, I get it. It's your right to do that. But I do think that what has made the internet great is the free sharing of information.
Yeah,
And
100%.
I don't want a paywall for my agent that, if I can go to the site for free, if I fill out the CAPTCHA, but my agent has to pay a penny to access it, and it gets charged to me as some kind of like, extra service fee, extra, charge for using an agent versus me going there myself. I could see that being the future that we're heading towards in Cloudflare. So much of the internet is going through their stack, right? So they would control a ton of it, and they'd make a lot of money on those micro transactions, I imagine. And they probably have some projections of how much money they could potentially make if they can pull this thing off. And maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I'm speculating, but in this case, I'm the default pessimist, and I just don't trust that wouldn't happen. And that doesn't seem like what I would be interested in. And as far as like having agents browse on my behalf, I agree. I want this agent to authenticate on my behalf, but I want it to do so in the same way that I can do. Open internet, open content, go out, do stuff, on my behalf on the internet without having blocks, that are safeguards or pricing pages in the way, right? Or some kind of like pricing mechanism that sits in the middle.
Yeah, because Bristol's on the opposite side of this, where they wanted everything to be open, support open internet, open source, etc. But maybe they have that opinion because it's the opposite of Cloudflare. So
yeah, well, I agree with I agree with Vercel. Let's aim for that approach. That seems to be what I would prefer. If you're watching this, what do you prefer? Let us know. Hit us up on X or LinkedIn. Are you pro open agent browsable internet, or do you want to be pro content creators and being able to monetize their content and keep it safe from agents? I think we'll have this debate for a long time. I don't think it's a settled matter, and it'd be interesting to see where it all goes.
I do think it was a little excessive to call Paul part of the axis of evil. Right?
Yeah,
but that's a little much.
Like
I support browser based, of
course.
Like,
I like the team. We're close to the team at Browser Base. Like there's some homies. I mean, Annie was there for a long time with Stagehand, and we get along great with Annie, who's now at Smithery. Paul, he's a good guy. I mean, Paul's competitive. Like, he wants to win, and this is obviously maybe a way that he can help get more agents using browsers. Like, maybe. So again, like I think it was like definitely a little over the top calling it an axis of evil, but also it gives us something to talk about. So
that's true. And Paul handled it so well too. So.
It was a very classy response in like tongue in cheek, funny way that wasn't too over the top. I do imagine the discourse around this will continue as more of these gates come out, or other platforms have gates, and it's just going to be, I don't know, it's going to be kind of spicy. I will say on that tweet thread, you did see a lot of people from the browser-based team jumping in and saying, "Whoa, not axis of evil." I didn't see a lot of people from Cloudflare. Maybe they're leaning into it.
They want to be the axis of evil.
Yeah, maybe they're like, okay, game on. That's what we'll play. I don't know, but anyways, always good to have a little drama that we can talk about, and it will be interesting to see how this plays out with browser base, with Cloudflare, and obviously with some of the other providers out there like Browser Use and things like that.
Yeah, I support the base case mafia. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're torn in between YC versus base case.
Yeah.
What's up, Nick? Oh. Good to see
Taylor,
you.
What's up?
All right, well, should we wrap up, dude? It's been almost 2-hour stream, and
about to go catch a flight.
All right, well, enjoy being back in San Francisco. I'll see you in Belgium in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'll see you there, dude.
But yeah, we'll be back next week. Yeah, we'll be back next week, Mondays, noon Pacific. Normally, because of the holiday, we're doing it on Tuesdays, so kind of a special edition this week. But yeah, we will see you all next time.
Peace.